Hello, this is Indo World Cup Daily coming to you from Paris. Well, Andy Farrell will name his team later today for Saturday's World Cup quarter-final against New Zealand. It is 24 hours earlier than usual, Keane. So tell us, what do you know, Keane?
I suppose the big concern is Matt Hansen, Sinead. I know you were out of training yesterday. You could see him sitting in the stand. Usually not a good sign when a player misses a training session for the week of such a big game. That said, I fully expect Ireland to give Matt Hansen every chance to prove his fitness in time. He's such an important player to Ireland. But then we had Keith Earls up for media at the start of the week. I think there's a good chance that if Matt Hansen misses out, it will be Keith Earls. We'd be the one to come in. Jimmy O'Brien is another option, but I think Andy Farrell trusts Keith Earls. So that would be interesting, even though that Matt Hansen, if he's out, would be a big blow. Like you mentioned there, Ireland have brought their team announcement forward by a day, which kind of lessens the scope to give Matt Hansen a little bit of extra time. So that's the big concern at this stage. It'll be interesting to see if Hansen does prove his fitness in time, but the fact he was sitting in the stand yesterday, you wouldn't think bodes well. James Ryan, I mean, it looks almost certainly like he will not be involved. People who are listening or watching on YouTube may have gotten the messages that seem to be doing the rounds of James Ryan, which what looked like in a cast. Apparently he went back to Dublin and saw the specialist, and from the pictures, like I said, I've seen around, it looks like he had some sort of procedure possibly done on his hand, so it's very unlikely that he's going to play this weekend. Will Ireland rule him out? Who knows, in terms of like bigger picture stuff. Maybe if Ireland believe that they're going to win this weekend, Ryan could possibly come back for a potential semi-final. Not that anyone is getting ahead of themselves. So James Ryan would be a big loss as well, Sinead.
And what are the ramifications for that in terms of the bench then?
Yeah, so it's huge. I mean, like, it was a big shock, I think, that James Ryan got dropped in the first place last weekend. You could see when he came on with a point to prove. The bench options would be Ryan Baird and Joe McCarthy, who are very different players, I would say. Ryan Baird has certainly been seen more as a back row in more recent times by Andy Farrell. He has played in the second row. Look, he's played in some big games for Ireland, particularly in the Grand Slam earlier this year. So he has much more, a bigger body of work to go by. But Joe McCarthy is a fascinating example. We've heard how highly Andy Farrell spoke about him, even at last week's team announcement, if you remember correctly. Yeah. What did he call him? Big young Joe McCarthy, which is still stuck in my head. So that is a huge call as well. Like, we are obsessed with the starting team and that, but the 23 is really important. So will he go with Baird? Will he go with McCarthy? This New Zealand team is not like playing the Springboks, where you might be tempted to have a guy like Joe McCarthy who gives you that, more strength, more power. The All Blacks are likely to have Sam Whitelock on the bench, so maybe Ireland would prefer to go with a more athletic profile, someone like a Ryan Baird. You'd imagine Jack Honan will be on the bench as well. So
what about Ross Byrne? Do you think he could make the bench?
Yeah, he's always going to be a live option, isn't he? Particularly if Ireland think it's going to be a tight game, and if they need someone to come out and go. Personally, I would still back Jack Crowley. That's just my own personal preference. I didn't think he did too badly at all. We discussed this in the podcast earlier in the week. I didn't think he did too badly at all when he came on last week. But yeah, of course, that's always going to be a live decision. I think who wears 23 is going to be a live decision as well. You were at training yesterday. Robbie Henshaw seemed to do a bit of running again, which is remarkable.
Yeah, it's an incredible recovery. Yeah,
but it's still a hamstring.
Yes.
And can you afford to have, if Keith Earls starts, can you afford to have Keith Earls and Robbie Henshaw in your matchday 23? Two guys who have been struggling with hamstring injuries, and two guys who have had hamstring injuries in the past. To me, that would be a big risk. I think Farrell would need to be fully sure that those guys can get through a certain amount of minutes. So possibly Stuart McCloskey might retain his place on the bench as well. So there's plenty of options there, despite the losses of, if Hansen is ruled out, and James Ryan, which looks like he will be.
Yeah, they'll be massive losses. And what about New Zealand? They will name their team tomorrow on Thursday. Talk about Ter Lomax could be okay again after his injury. Yeah,
that was the word yesterday. We obviously were both out at the New Zealand press conference, and the forwards coach Jason Ryan was asked about it, and he said that he was recovering well. I think he had a knee injury and that he would be considered for selection. Certainly talking to a few of the Kiwi press pack, they were a little less convinced, given the nature of I think it was a medial ligament, they were saying, injury, that it was such a tight turnaround. But there's a bit of a pressure, I think, on the All Blacks to get Thierry Lomax back, because he is so important to them. So that's one worth keeping an eye on as well. But they've given themselves, I suppose, the extra day to allow Lomax to prove his fitness on Thursday.
Okay, well, we will find out later today the team and bench that Andy Farrell will name for Saturday, and we will have a podcast from there later today.